students of Reddit, what's your well that happened moment in the classroom? Probably one of the most embarrassing moments of my life right here. It was 7th grade English class and my crush and the first girl I ever made out with was in the class. I don't remember if we kissed before or after this happened. Maybe after. Anyway, I let one rip. Silent but deadly literally by definition. It smelled so bad that the kids around me started freaking out and obviously my whole body is turning red. It caused such a distraction in the class from people laughing that the teacher made me go in the hall while the stench dissipated. After 5 minutes I was allowed back in and had to perform the walk of shame past my crush back to my desk that was drowning in Febreze. Not really a classroom, but one day after me and my friends were changing out into our regular clothes when suddenly we hear a commotion in the restroom. Our section of lockers had an almost direct view into the restrooms, so we make our way over there to see 2 of the 6 sinks, and they were ripped out of the walls by this one football player. This happened in February, and for the longest time until I graduated, I was a junior at the time, the sinks were still ripped out of the wall. One of the janitors must have gotten lazy because the next time we went into the locker room the sink was haphazardly put back into the wall only to be ripped out again. The guy who did this has major issues, as another friend said he played gore videos on a classroom projector. Everyone has a school issued laptop, and I saw him chase the freshman around the team locker room like a spider monkey, naked. I don't blame the janitorial. I had the entire student body treating everything like shot and was responsible for repair and cleaning. I wouldn't try. If you want to trash the nice things, you deserve to get only trash to use. I wasn't involved, but a couple of weeks ago the frickin' head boy of my secondary school legitimately swallowed a key. Apparently, he had placed it in his mouth to prove something and it had slipped down his throat. He had to go down to the medical room to get laxatives and get gloves so he could fish the key out of his poop. By the time he got it clean, the bloody thing had rusted black from stomach acid. I have another one which is quite infamous in my school. So we have this substitute teacher named Mr. Mandine, who can lose his temper quite easily. Usually, he's okay, but it seems this time he had zoned out. So 2 years ago, our school started practicing lockdown procedures after a teacher was stabbed to death in the same county. The unlikely situation of an actual lockdown occurred one day during tutor time when a couple of guys walked into the school carrying knives. During these lockdown procedures, the door is locked and the lights are turned off, and we are meant to stay as quiet as possible. In the tutor group 9B6, Mr. Mandine had replaced the usual teacher who was absent. Becoming sick of one of the students' constant chatter, he actually sent the guy to stand outside the room. Now, bear in mind that in this building, which got demolished the next year as we all moved to a new building, that room was inside one of the maths blocks, which only contained 2 rooms each and was situated directly next to the main path through the school. The guy was fine and the intruders were cleared off the site, and now we all have a good laugh about it. This was in my anthropology class my freshman year about 7 years ago. We had just watched a video about the schooling system in Japan. In some of the clips, the school children had name tags on their shirts. After the video ended, the professor asked if there were any questions. This guy who sat next to me, who, by the way, was always late and usually smelled strongly of weed, raised his hand and asked, "So, like, do the little Japanese kids have to wear name tags because you can't tell them apart?" As it turns out, the professor's wife is Japanese, and his children half Japanese. No longer a student, but when I was a freshman in high school there was this guy I knew since middle school who would always get into trouble. Well, one day he told our math teacher that he needed to go to the restroom. Already familiar with his behavior and using the restroom excuse to ditch class, she refused to let him go. He insisted that he had to go, but she refused yet again. Minutes passed and told the teacher that if she didn't let him use the restroom that he was going to pee on the trash can. Trying to call his bluff, she told him go for it on the trash can. Some of the students didn't think he'd do it and egged him on to do it. He got up from his desk and approached the trash can, which was at the corner right next to the classroom door. He was in the corner for a minute. Then he actually peed in the trash can. The teacher just sat there as it happened, nonchalant like. I can't remember if he left the class after he pulled it off since it was years ago, but yeah, it cracks me up thinking about that moment. A bonus I should add about the guy: my best friend knew him as well and were even good friends. He once told me that during our sophomore year the guy got expelled for breaking the door window of the security office. They chased him and caught up to him at a nearby mall. So, in primary school, I was around 11, and we had the system of classes visiting the school's library for about an hour to stimulate you to read books. It worked really well. Once a class is finished, a member of that class could go warn the next class, appointed by the teacher, to go to the library. I was appointed to go do that, and pretty proud of it. I knocked the door, opened it and wanted to say hey it's your turn to go to the library, but suddenly I was distracted by what was on the blackboard. The word Mediterranean Sea in huge letters. This class was being taught about it. So yeah, hey it's your turn to go to the Mediterranean Sea is what actually came out of my mouth. Bonus. No one of my own class found out. Extra bonus. The word in our language for library is bibliothèque, but in dialect in those times another word was bokerage, which translates to bookery, and I think bookery would be a nice word for library. Upvote for bookery. Okay, so this happened a while ago, so I might not have all the details. So I was on the school bus and we weren't allowed to eat on the bus. So the kids behind me were talking about lunch tomorrow and one of them said yeah I can bring bacon. I was hungry so I said, bacon? Who's bringing bacon? The bus driver overheard me, but didn't know it was me, stopped the bus, and yelled bacon. Who has bacon? Then he walked down the aisle and looked to see who has bacon. It was so funny, but you kinda had to be there. You will find that with most school stories, they are really only funny to tell to people who were also there. Students get their own weird PTSD-induced humor. Was walking to the bathroom. Some of the special needs kids were on their way to recess. One of the girls then screams, "Bathroom," and proceeds to pull down her pants and crap on the floor. Another time was when I was outside, walking towards the playground. Everyone started running back towards the buildings. We were being forced back because someone pooped on the walkway. IDK, what is wrong with my school and poop? My college dorm had an emergency hall meeting because the custodial staff kept finding human feces in the hallway trash cans. A review of security footage revealed that it was never the same person, multiple adult people just dropping a crap in a trash can despite knowing they're on camera. I took creative writing in college. The professor was a super laid-back dude who was incredibly passionate about English. Really cool guy. Started the first class by having us listen to Cheap Trick and talking about how words are magical. Then he came up with what he described as what would be either the best or worst idea he had ever had. Every week, it was a night class, so only one 3-hour-long class a week. He would bring a different alcoholic beverage for the class. Usually it was wine, sometimes beer or hard liquor. We would then get drunk and work on our writing project. The class only had one assignment: write a novel. It was the greatest class I've ever been in. That sounds like the best time ever. I would actually get some writing done in that class instead of not doing anything. This is the story of Dot the dog. My high school English teacher in my junior year was known for being fun and eccentric. She told wild stories and had odd habits. The oddest habit was bringing a large plaster Dalmatian dog to class on test days. We all pet it for good luck. It had been a tradition in her class for over 20 years if I recall correctly. This thing was ugly, terribly plastered, fading paint, weird proportions. The fact that it was the size of a real Dalmatian made it weirder, but it was important to her. So important that she chained it to desks to keep it from being stolen. Because every year, someone would steal it. When I was in her class, Dot was stolen and held for ransom. Videos with a blindfolded Dot were sent to my teacher, detailing how Dot would be released if the test was cancelled. This didn't work. Dot was not returned, and test day was looming. Students became upset that Dot was not there to comfort them. The dog napper was found and he returned Dot for a time. Later in the year, our playful feud with the physics department was made known. The test day comes, and there are physics symbols all over this poor plaster dog. So, since I had art supplies at home, I offered to repaint Dot. I was trustworthy and had no schemes in mind, so my teacher agreed to let me. She unchained the dog, and heck broke loose. The previous dog thief quickly got up and snatched Dot. Turns out it was light enough to bolt out of the class and to the parking lot with. His accomplice ran with him. I ran after. It didn't help that I was wearing heels that day, but by some divine intervention, I didn't trip and was able to catch up halfway before they got to the parking lot. But before I could take back the plaster pup, the first guy passed it to his cohort who then ran off. I tried to catch up to this next guy, but to no avail. I was blocked by the first. The second guy was in the clear. He would have gotten away with it if he didn't drop and break it. Dot was in pieces. We all had an oh crap look on our faces. The teacher and rest of the class, hearing our distress, come out and see the carnage. The dust from the plaster blows away in the wind. Dot the dog, a 20-odd year legacy, was gone forever. Our teacher wasn't too mad. She replaced Dot with a golden plastic hippo. Wasn't the same though. She commended me for my effort. The school newspaper did a piece on the incident, but I was never mentioned. Still salty about that TBH. And that's the story of Dot. Not many know it anymore, and there are so many comments here that I don't know if anyone will see this, but I can't live my life not telling this story. Goodbye Dot. Rip literally in pieces. Someone threatened to shoot up my high school over social media during my senior year. 2/3 of my school didn't come to school that day. My AP literature teacher thought this would be a great day to read A Good Man Is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor, which if you don't know, is about a serial killer who ultimately shoots an entire family by the end of the story. She told us to stop worrying about things that would never happen. Our school's administration also made fun of us for panicking the entire day. When they announced over the intercom that the police determined there was no threat, the principal blamed us for letting things get out of hand. That we were overreacting. There was a real school shooting that same day in another state. We went on a school-wide lockdown a few months later because of shots fired in the small neighborhood across the street from the school. Needless to say, I think we had every right to be terrified. The lockdown alarm sounded and we went into lockdown. A little later a man come pounding the doors yelling these dang Dairy Queens don't have chicken nuggets, only strips. I was trying so hard not to laugh, cause I am weird and laugh when I'm scared or nervous. And eventually the security guard lured him out by saying he'll buy him chicken nuggets from McDonald's. Apparently he didn't have any weapons, and that happened. When you want freaking nuggies, nothing else will do. I can't post the link since I am at work, but that one YouTube video of that lady going nuts over not getting some chicken nuggets in the drive-thru is what your story reminded me of. You have not seen my final form. I go to an art school where my department is directly above the sculpture department. Plus, the building is structured so that the center of that floor is open so we can see and hear everything that happens below us in the hallways. Needless to say we hear a lot of performance art sometimes in class. My favorite was when we were just critiquing in one of my late classes where everyone, even the professor, is exhausted. We often kept the door open because it automatically locks and people needed to get in and out to go to the bathroom, etc. Suddenly we hear metal items fall from somewhere and the blood-curdling shrieks of 1,000 banshees from outside our classroom. Things keep falling, and soon enough maybe 2 other girls screech along. It sounded like people were being brutally beaten with pots and pans, but they just wouldn't die. We were ready to fricking yeet out of there to avoid being murdered. My professor hurried out to look out from the balcony hallway and just sees a group of people watching these 3 girls screaming like they were being exorcised of Satan himself. I saw her turn and look at us with the most I'm fricking done faces she's ever made and walk back inside and shake her head. We just closed the door and tried to tune it out. Teacher made a masturbation joke. This isn't uncommon. He makes many dirty jokes, but as teens none of us care and frankly find them hilarious. Whilst we had a year 7 in the class doing a test, he forgot she was in there and immediately panicked and started apologizing to her. Don't think she really cared either. Still felt sorry for her though. The same teacher also blew up 3 plastic bottles. 2 he expanded with heat from a Bunsen burner until they burst and melted. The second he used a bicycle pump to send another bottle up into the air like a rocket. He almost broke the ceiling. He ended up getting the bicycle pump confiscated by the lab technician. Not too proud of this moment. Back in 8th grade, my teacher had this intelligence quiz. I vividly remember that one of the questions asked on the quiz was, what do these 3 inventions have in common? The fire extinguisher, body armor, and fire alarm. I, in my prime edgelord years, wrote down a very simple answer. They don't work. Going through the answers, the teacher revealed that the answer to the question was that they were all invented by women. Don't know if that's true. To which I, in my brilliance, decided to blurt out, "That's why they don't work." The look of disappointment and hushed giggles haunt me to this day. It was in homeroom and the entire school was listening to the morning announcements. Recently some kid, call him John, had gotten in trouble for having a vulgar sign at one of our football games. The sign reads something like "Insert opposing school here has Ebola," and had to apologize to the entire school over the intercom. He apologized and at the very end wrapped it up with "My name is John and freakout writes in the P." Everyone looked at each other in complete disbelief as if we were all saying, "Did that just really come out of his mouth?" One of the most funny moments in my high school experience. You will not be forgotten, John. In 6th grade I witnessed what was probably the end of a substitute's career. One of my classmates showed up about an hour or so late after deciding he wanted to color his hair pink. For whatever reason he decided the best way to go about this was to dip his head in pink paint. The sub told him to go wash his hair out immediately in the bathroom, but he wasn't having any of that. After several minutes of them arguing back and forth, she walked over and grabbed him by the hair and slammed his face into his desk. As soon as she let go of him, he ran out the door and to his home across the street. The sub just sat in the corner sobbing until the principal came and escorted her out. Girl in English class faints and students rush over to see if she's okay. The teacher tells students to get a chair and prop her up on it. The teacher sends someone down to the office to get a teacher phone for help. Teacher carries on reading out poems that we should be studying. Anyway, the girl ends up having an epileptic fit and everyone kinda freaks out. The teacher gets mad that no one is listening to her read the poems and tells everyone to sit back down, help will come at some stage. Girl gets rushed to the hospital. She turned out okay. Teachers took a few days off though. One of my classmates, 15 years old, was built like a brick shithouse. Our art teacher, super cool guy, wanted the kid to demonstrate how solidly built he was. With the kid's permission, he was gonna give him a hard shove to see how hard it would be to knock him over. Well, it definitely didn't go according to plan. They both assumed their positions. Student had his arms crossed standing right in front of the teacher. Then the art teacher gave him a huge shove. No joke, my classmate flew backwards and knocked over a chair before landing with a thud and sliding a bit further. It was like something out of an anime fight scene. The silence was awful. The teacher thought he was gonna get fired over this. He obviously figured the student wouldn't go down that easy. The student was beaten, embarrassed as all heck. The rest of the class didn't believe what just went down. After the teacher apologized a million times, we all agreed not to mention this to other teachers. Still one of my favorite teachers. Second week of our first term. First year at uni, so no one really knew each other that well. We were in a child language acquisition class and our lecturer was telling us how she was half German, so was fluent in both German and English. A Latvian guy, maybe 25, who was a bit strange anyway. On my table then for no apparent reason just shouted our Sieg Heil. Cue silence. Pin dropping silence. Cue awkward looks to each other. Our lecturer then started asking what did he say. He said nothing. She asked again and asked why would he say that. He started going red and mumbled something like it was funny. Our lecturer then started getting angry and took her cardigan off and started shouting at him. Does he know what that means? He admitted no. He thought it was a greeting. Our lecturer asked anyone in the class if they could explain why what he just said was so offensive. Thankfully my friend came to the rescue and asked if we could just move on. The guy then googled Sieg Heil and a look of horror appeared on his face. He genuinely assumed it was just a German greeting. Grade 10 or 11, can't remember. I was a slacker, but got along great with all my teachers. I liked to push my luck to see how far I could go with my balls. In math class there was a no drink policy, but I usually had a bottle of pop in there anyways. One day after finishing it, sitting at the back of the class, I tossed the bottle clear across the room and got it cleanly into the trash can. The teacher stops, looks at me and says, "Bet you can't do that again." I did. So he grabs it, goes further back, and lands it. I put my back against the far wall and toss it, landing it again. He takes it at the same range and does a little spin first, landing it. At this point I needed to shut him down. It had gone on long enough. I grab it out of the can, start walking towards him making fierce eye contact and toss it over my shoulder. The class loses their goddamn minds. It was another clean shot. The teacher just nods and sits back down at his desk. 12/10, could never replicate ever again. This requires a little backstory. I lived in a tiny little town made up almost entirely of farmers. Most of the kids from my town didn't finish school, they just worked on their parents' farms. Most of them got together or were homeschooled to comply with laws. Because our town was so small, population of less than 500 people, we had two choices for schooling. The private school about 20 minutes north, or the public school about 40 minutes west. The private school was safe, with good teachers, and students that were under control, but it was expensive. The public school was the school that all the kids that were kicked out of their schools went. Most of these kids were violent, drug addicts, or just never showed up to class. Having nothing to compare it to at the time, I didn't realize how fricked up it was until I moved away and made friends outside of school. We had an average of 3-5 bomb threats a year. We had several lockdowns because kids were bringing in knives or other weapons. Our school would bring in the local PD a few times a year to do dog searches for drugs. We had metal detectors in front of the school, and you absolutely were not, under any circumstances, allowed to bring a book bag into the school. Anyway, suffice to say there were a lot of fights, and a lot of violence. Two incidents stand out though amongst it all. 1. We had a guy a grade below me that was absolutely obsessed with things being fair. He would lose his crap if he thought someone was cheating. I was taking Spanish class with him, and he caught the guy sitting one seat in front of him cheating during a test. He freaked out. He started screaming and calling him every name in the book. The teacher escorted him to the office, and we all thought it was over, except it wasn't. 2 classes later, and he caught the cheater in the hallway. This kid was so pissed that he attacked him with the only weapon he had, a pencil. He shoved the pencil up the kid's nose, and it came out his eye socket. He wound up getting arrested. Other kid lost an eye. 2. Our town, and unfortunately the town we were busted, were both extremely racist. We had a single kid in class that wasn't white, but after years of bullying, his parents took him out of the school. Anyway, it had been years since we had anyone in the school who wasn't white. In sophomore year, it come out that one of the girls in my grade was dating a Mexican guy. The boys in our class, and in some of the classes both above and below us, lost their crap. Suddenly signs were appearing on her locker every morning. Horrible, terrible, derogatory things were plastered all over her locker. Then the bullying started. Some of the guys would trip her while she was walking. The girls took her clothes during gym class. She would get threatening letters in her locker. Eventually it ended when she involved the police. I always felt so bad for her. Let me start by saying this kid knew what this meant despite it being in 5th grade. One day towards the end of the school day, he goes around the classroom drawing the Nazi symbol on all of his friends' hands, and declares that they are all in a cult now and instructs them to keep it on, and if it fades to redraw it. Recess the next day, instead of playing the usual game of tag, they're playing war. I think that's what he called it, and told all the kids with the symbol to fight the ones who didn't have it because they were evil. At some point during recess he had someone draw the Nazi symbol on his forehead. Needless to say, this did not go over well, but all that happened was he was moved into a different class. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.